Hi everyone and welcome to episode 4 of Imagine Cup Junior as part of our DreamSpace HomeSpace series. Very welcome to today's episode. So join me, I'm Amanda, and joining me today is Niamh.
Hi everyone.
And over the last few weeks, we've been looking at, I suppose, the fundamentals of artificial intelligence. So really the foundational levels. We've been delving into data sets. We've been looking at machine learning. Last week, we really went in depth with machine learning, looking at another subset of that called deep learning and neural networks. And remember, ultimately, the point of this was to give everyone watching a foundational knowledge of artificial intelligence so that when you go off to come up with ideas for your project, that you actually understand how artificial intelligence works. And that you can actually put that on paper for us as you present your project and say, this is how it would work, this is what I'd want it to do. So ultimately, the last few weeks has been about giving you that knowledge to build on. And today we want to maybe delve a little bit more into what we want your project based on, and how you can kind of start maybe picking certain areas and narrowing them down. Okay, and as always, we have the rest of our team available to answer questions. So we have the Q&A section there, as you know. So please pop in any questions at any point, and we'll try and get to them either while we're going through the webinar or at the end. Okay. So also to point out that after each webinar, after each episode, we upload the student guides that kind of touch on everything we've done, but also delve a little bit more into detail on other bits as well, and are really useful. So I would advise you that if you're going to be entering a project, have a look at them, go through them. There's kind of useful tips and tricks in there and more knowledge maybe that will actually help you with your project design. What we'll put up there today also is kind of what we're looking for in terms of your project. So what would score you the most marks when it's being assessed, and what would score you the most marks. And one of the things I want to just quickly explain today is that when you submit your project as a presentation, you'll see here, this is just a snip of a guide that I'm going to put on that website I just talked about. And one of the first things, one of the first things it asks you to do is identify which AI for Good initiative that you've chosen. So today's episode is all about actually giving you a feel for what those initiatives are, where Microsoft have already done work in these areas. And you don't have to go exactly with the examples we show you. We want you, again, to be as innovative as possible with this and come up with your own ideas, if you can. The rest of that then just goes through other bits of what you want in your presentation. But today we are focusing on this, and next week we might delve a little bit more into how you present your project and stuff. But I want you to think today which of these 4 pillars is really useful, and really kind of, I suppose, strikes a chord with you, something that you're passionate about, because that will come across when you come up with ideas for your project. So when you've picked your pillar, so whether it's AI for Earth or AI for accessibility, whatever the pillar is, remember then what we're asking you to do is use design thinking to come up with a specific idea. So we want you to empathize with that area. We want you to define the problem and state what you're trying to solve with AI, and then come up with the ideas of how that will work. So with design thinking, we really want you to focus, remember, on these 3 areas. And we've explained that in previous webinars, but today more than ever, because we're going to be explaining those pillars, really keep this in mind. Okay. So we're going to get going, and we're going to show you a quick video on, I suppose, how ideas can lead to innovations. And these are just some examples of people around the world that have actually have come up with really cool ideas using artificial intelligence.
With the right tools, ideas become the next innovation.
My idea is to prevent patients overdosing on prescription drugs.
I want diabetic patients to be aware of when they might get heart disease.
I'm trying to increase awareness about organ donation.
Microsoft helps ideas take flight.
Imagine a soil being able to tell the right quantity of nutrients it needs.
To help people with heart disabilities to live fuller and happier life.
Breaking through barriers.
We're trying to help people with disabilities lead more independent and inclusive lives.
Reaching across borders.
In India, organ donation is critical. If you don't get it on time, you could ultimately lose your life. I wanted to change that by introducing machine learning and AI.
Hi, Microsoft AI for Good.
Microsoft is putting innovation in the hands of people.
With our solution, the farmers can save up to 70% of wheat pillars.
We see a need to put AI in the process to empower doctors to analyze more patients. It will help them to detect critical cases much faster and preventing heart attacks.
Leaf AI is an automatic plant disease detection tool that can identify plant diseases with a simple smartphone.
To create change for the better.
Challenges like this allow people like myself to be able to bring our solutions to life.
I seize the opportunity and hope that others will use artificial intelligence to make this world a better place.
Okay, so that's what we want you to do as well. We want you to use AI to make the world a better place. And what I want to point out there is, if you notice some of the project examples, they're really specific. So when you come up with your idea, think about something that's achievable. And sometimes for it to be achievable, you really have to drill it down to be a very specific challenge you're trying to solve. So for example, one of the videos you've seen there, one of the examples was a girl who had developed an app that she took a photo of a leaf. And then it was able to give her feedback about the leaf, like whether it was healthy and if there was a disease beginning to grow on the leaf, etc. And that helped inform future decisions then and make sure they could be proactive about the health of the plant. So all of those things are very specific. So your ideas, we want you, when you come up with an idea, we tend as humans, and I do this all the time, to think really big. Like the ideas are really maybe too big to solve in one little project. So you might need to keep drilling it down. And next week we'll look at that. We'll look at something called the decision tree, which helps us think of something broadly, but then narrow it down to something maybe that's a little bit more achievable. Okay, so we're going to go in now and just give you an overview, and Neve's going to do this with me. So Neve, we look at this a lot in DreamSpace, don't we? The AI for Good pillars. So yeah, you're familiar with these. Which ones do you actually, what ones do you find most interesting, I suppose?
Well, I suppose they're all equally interesting. Personally, I would know more about the AI for Earth because I'm quite interested in the earth and the ocean, so I probably know the most about that one. But I think the other three are equally as interesting and important, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing the projects and seeing the different things people come up with for each of the different pillars, especially the four I wouldn't know as much about.
Perfect. Yeah, great stuff. So we're going to give you an overview. Now remember, your project isn't going to be one of these examples, okay? It's going to be something within the area, okay? So obviously, for example, something like the leaf example we saw there, that would kind of fall into AI for Earth. All right, it isn't one of the examples you'll see today. We're just kind of giving you an idea of how big your projects could become and from one little idea. Okay, so let's jump into AI for Earth, Neve, which you're saying you actually really like. I really like this one too, and we have a couple of examples we can look at with this. So one of the things we need to think about is, well, what is the problem? Why do we need AI to help solve some of the Earth's problems? Well, we have obviously a huge amount of biodiversity on Earth. We have lots of plants, lots of animals. The fancy words are there on the screen for that. Flora and fauna, so we've lots of them, and unfortunately we've a lot of them maybe that are very endangered, and then on top of that, in terms of plant life, we have a lot of deforestation, which is us cutting down trees and stuff, and sometimes that's okay because it's controlled properly, but sometimes it might not be either. So there are lots of challenges out there in terms of the Earth and our natural resources and how we're taking care of them. So let's have a look at two examples of how we can maybe take care of resources a little bit better on Earth. These are two examples of companies that are working with Microsoft, have partnered with us to use artificial intelligence. And based on the knowledge you've had the last 3 weeks, hopefully you can see how it's being used to help them with these challenges that we have on Earth at the moment. Now, the first one we're going to look at is an example about sustainability for fishing. So again, you might be familiar with this from school when you would have looked at fishing in geography, science, and the idea of overfishing. So in a lot of countries, there's fishing quotas. They can only fish a certain amount, and then it's capped, because if we overfish, then we're not giving enough chance for this to be sustainable. So what we're finding, or what's been found in a lot of countries, is that the fishing industry might be reporting a certain amount of fish caught, but it's actually not truthful or honest, which is a problem, because then that's not giving a good overview of where we're at in terms of keeping this sustainable. So you can see there in the image, it says reported and then unreported, and the unreported figure is actually really high as well. So this was noticed and recognized by a company, and I'm going to show you a video on this now. And they were able to use artificial intelligence to help monitor and track this so that they could take an action in a quick enough manner to keep this sustainable. So let's watch the video and then we'll quickly kind of touch on things that were mentioned afterwards.
It's amazing how much humans take from the sea.
Costa Rica is 92% oceans. We want it to be sustainable.
Illegal fisheries is a great threat. It's having an impact in our oceans and in our economy and in our environment.
There's many issues with sourcing sustainable seafood. We are trying to push for that accountability on the water.
Using Microsoft AI, we empower governments, suppliers and NGOs at scale around the world to prevent illegal fishing in a way that just wasn't possible before. At OceanMind, we receive billions of data points, satellite images, optical imagery, radar imagery, infrared data. We use Microsoft AI to recognize different types of fishing activity, the identity of the vessel, and whether that vessel had a license. We find the suspicious activities so that our analysts can look and investigate it, and governments can enforce more effectively.
Now we have data, we can identify vessels, we can identify patterns of illegal fishery and support the Coast Guard.
The ability to have third-party verification is crucial in protecting us and our brand as we sell seafood throughout the world.
We are making our first API available through Microsoft AI for Earth to anyone who wants to help fight illegal fishing.
The time for taking care of the oceans is now.
We have the capabilities to change the needle on the sustainability of fishing. I am convinced that we will make a difference.
So I think the key word there, Amanda, was sustainability, because obviously if any species of fish becomes extinct, it'll have a big impact on, we'd say, the world food chain as such. So the data they're receiving there seems to be of crucial importance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the last 2 weeks we looked at data points and data sets and how the more data there is, the better informed the system is. And you've seen there, actually, one of the guys in the video mentioned that this data was helping them recognize patterns and help governments and help NGOs to actually fight this illegal fishing, which is so crucial, because like you said, Niamh, all of this always has a knock-on effect in terms of, you know, the circle of life and in terms of keeping our habitats as best as we can. So really important. So OceanMind is one example there of using AI. And actually one of the things they mentioned, and it was a word we talked about last week, was API. And they said that they're making their API available for others, which is great, because they're basically sharing this amazing piece of technology developed to help others. And that's the thing with technology, it can be spread across the world quite quickly. And so that just shows you as well, the power of us working and collaborating together is really important too. So another example we can look at is agriculture. So when we think about the growing population, not just in Ireland, but across the world, that we need to think about sustainability in terms of food, and we have a growing population, we need to feed that population. So how do people like farmers, for example, make sure that they're working as sustainably as possible? And how do they make sure that they're irrigating and watering land, making sure they're harvesting at the right time? Because obviously this changes and evolves. So again, this is where data could be crucially important. And there's a company that's worked with Microsoft called The Yield, and they're looking at precision farming, so which helps them have less waste and produce more ultimately and be really sustainable. So let's have a look at this video as well to see how this could help in farming.
Right now, artificial intelligence helps us meet the needs of today so we're prepared for tomorrow.
By 2050, we need to produce 60% more food. So how are we going to feed the world without wrecking the planet? Using Microsoft artificial intelligence, we can reduce waste and produce more food. Any grower will tell you every row, every crop is different. We can use Microsoft AI to make local predictions about light, wind, rain. This helps farmers know when to plant, irrigate, and harvest. It's making a difference.
Artificial intelligence helps farmers grow more while wasting less.
Okay, so from a sustainability point of view, wasting less is going to be absolutely crucial, and obviously growing more for the growing population is also going to be really crucial. Really interesting, Niamh, there, wasn't it, like about what they were monitoring? You know, there was wind, there was rain, there was light, all of these things helping farmers make decisions.
Exactly, because back a couple of years ago, farmers relied on weather patterns and obviously seasons and the usual patterns of different seasons. And now with climate change, that all has been turned upside down, because obviously there's not as the patterns don't exist anymore the same way. So obviously with this, it gives instant data to the farmers, and it means that they can make instant decisions based on the types of the different things that you spoke about, like rain and soil and temperature and different things.
Exactly, because it's not as predictable now, like you said. Exactly, it's not as predictable. So if you think about it, with the amount of, there's all this data sitting there, but maybe farmers in the past, like Niamh said, didn't really know. They were dependent on patterns, but they didn't really know how to predict things anymore. Now we have sensors. If you think about technology, we have all these sensors. We talked about before in one of our weeks about the Internet of Things, the way that sensors could all be linking back to one computer and feeding back information. So if we can continually monitor temperature, soil pH, soil moisture, and all of these things, we can actually really help farmers in terms of all of this type of stuff. So there's 2 examples of AI for Earth that we've seen, and Niamh made a really good point there about climate change. Climate change is obviously one of the areas that we're really conscious of, and trying to see again, how can technology help? And there's lots of different contributing factors to climate change. So scientists are obviously continuously analysing this, and people who work with technology are constantly looking at ways that they can help. And you've seen 2 examples there. So maybe for your project, if you're interested in AI for Earth, you could think about climate related risks as well, and how maybe one of your projects on a specific area could help with that. But we're going to move away from AI for Earth now. That's kind of our overview of AI for Earth done. And we're going to now have a look at something that I actually find really interesting, AI for cultural heritage, okay? So AI for cultural heritage is looking at preserving, obviously, our culture, and also kind of making sure that we know about our history and we're aware of that. So it could be used in different ways. It might be using technology to recreate things. So it could be to recreate what something used to look like, and so people can explore that and learn about history in that way. And it could be about using artificial intelligence to understand old documents, being able to scan a document, understand it, identify links and patterns within a language that was used in history. But the example we're going to look at now is on languages, okay, and specifically endangered languages. Now, I actually didn't know, and I don't know if people watching know, I didn't really know that we had so many endangered languages in the world. So across the world, there's a lot of languages that are spoken. A lot of languages that are out there, but only a small percentage of them are actually spoken, and 1/3 of them are actually endangered languages. You can see it there in that diagram, actually, in this red area, 40.71%. Niamh, do you know of any endangered languages, actually?
Well, actually, I do, Amanda, and as a proud Gaeilgeoir, I was quite upset recently when I found out that Gaeilge, our own Irish language, is actually one of the endangered languages. And obviously, a language makes a nation unique. It's to do with their culture and heritage. So if it becomes endangered and then perhaps extinct, that takes away a little bit from a nation. It removes a piece of their identity. So obviously, it's important to have these languages, so hopefully this will help kind of really give them a new lease of life.
Yeah, exactly. We want to preserve the languages, and we also want to know where they've come from and what the history is. So another language actually on the list is the Maori language from New Zealand. And this video I'm going to show you now, I know we have lots of videos today, but it's just to give you these nice examples of how this is being used. This video is of the Maori language and how Microsoft Translator, which is something we looked at last week, is being used to help them get young people and actually all of the people, the whole nation, to engage with this language again and try and move it from being endangered. So we'll have a look at this and see what we think about AI and its role to play here.
Ko te reo te hā o te Māori. My identity isn't just me sitting here. It's all of those above and all of those below. I connect to them through my language.
Our language is the key to our world. Without it, we lose that understanding of who we are. Māori was the predominant language in Māori communities, and after World War II there was a huge migration of people into urban areas.
It was an oral language, and it's only been a written language for 200 years.
The corpus of translated text is really small when you compare it to other big languages. And so we saw the language start to dwindle. If something wasn't done, then our language would become extinct.
Kōrero Māori i ngā wā katoa.
Speak Māori all the time.
Kōrero Māori.
E I te ao I te pō. Speak Māori day and night.
We need AI and neural machine learning to revitalise the Māori language. So we started working with the team here at AUT.
We're using data that's only in Māori language. The more data we get that's specific to Māori, the better the AI we will create.
Microsoft are providing the platform, and then as people use it, it will continue to learn.
For language to survive, it must be normalised. It must be normal in every situation. It has to be easy, otherwise it won't be used.
What Microsoft Translator will do will mean that there will be more opportunities to translate, and that the proliferation of translation will increase.
As long as we continue to find new ways to create access to the language, then people are going to continue to engage. We've reached this tipping point. It gives you hope for the future that our language will continue, to survive, and not only survive but thrive.
Okay, so you've seen there was a couple of things mentioned there actually that touched on what we said in the last few weeks. Again, there was a mention of the more it's used, the more it will learn. So we know about that. And we also heard the mention of using a neural network and a deep learning model. So that's what's being used here to ensure that we get that the Maori language is being included, and also that means they can preserve that as part of their heritage. So there's an example of AI for cultural heritage. So there's other examples. Think about, there's many different ways, and again, lots of information about this in the guide we'll provide you. So again, you could think about that as a pillar. Is there anything in there that you think your project could be based on? Okay. Now we're swiftly moving here because we've get through 4 today, and again, there's a good bit of video here, but it's given us nice insights into other projects. So the next one we want to look at is AI for accessibility. We've actually discussed this a couple of times by giving you different examples, and we'll see that now in a second. So with AI for accessibility, Microsoft work with people who have ideas that can use our cognitive services that we talked about the last few weeks, that can use machine learning, and develop solutions that will help people with disabilities in different parts of their lives. So whether it's employment, so helping them in their day-to-day work, their daily life, or even just to communicate and connect with others. So there's many ways in which technology can help, and a lot of the solutions that have been developed focus on one or sometimes a few of those areas. So again, we're going to watch a video, lots of videos today. I hope people have their popcorn at home, and we're going to watch a video and it's going to cover a couple of solutions. So in this video, we're not just looking at one thing. They're going to mention a couple of AI for accessibility solutions that have been developed using cognitive services and using machine learning. So we'll watch that and we'll quickly touch on some of them after the video.
We have so many pupils who are non-verbal but still have so much to say.
I want the exact same information that my hearing friends have.
There are barriers to communication everywhere, but I think it's time we look at the barriers as opportunities to reach out to everyone.
Soundscape fills in a lot of the mental map as you move.
Approaching intersection.
You can just put it in your pocket and go.
With ALS, you become locked in. But we see technology as a way to give back what ALS has taken away.
There's no better feeling than to hear a child say something that they've wanted to say and the look on their face after they've been able to say it.
When it's reading, I see spaces between the words, and it's easy to focus on.
Anjay realized that here was something that could change his life.
Now that I have my phone, I can see exactly what was said, and that's been a huge help to me.
The system is learning as it goes, and the accuracy has improved tremendously.
Students can pick any language that they choose to receive the information. It's like we jumped into the future.
Because communication is very important for all of us, and we just want to be together and not feel left out.
Aider les personnes avec autisme à communiquer, il y a des images.
Je parle, je donne une information à Arthur et elle est traduite par l'application El Picto instantanément en pictogramme et après d'une façon orale.
Va t'habiller et te brosser les dents.
On va pouvoir remettre en place une communication qui est plus spontanée. Je crois que ça aide à recréer du lien.
Both my wife and I are totally blind, and we have a 3-year-old son that's in preschool. He can see, but his parents can't. So to be able to know what's going on at his school is everything. The Seeing AI app has the ability to allow me access to the visual world. Artificial intelligence is beginning to have an impact on the lives of people with disabilities, but it's only going to grow. There is still so much out there to be done.
Okay, so lots of examples there across lots of different areas in terms of how AI can help people with disabilities, as we said, employment, daily life, or just to communicate and connect. And there's 3 examples that we have up on our website of this, and they're all in the video you saw there, 2 of which we've actually looked at quite a bit. So Seeing AI and Microsoft Translator, we've talked about and we've mentioned in our previous episodes. And one that was there though was El Picto. I don't have seen that, and the people in the video were speaking in French. It was developed in France, and I'm going to actually hop out and you'll see it now, and it will say bonjour to me on the screen as well. But what this is it's for children who are non-verbal, and it allows them to communicate using pictures. So either they can select something to communicate with by choosing a picture, and it will actually read out loud then what that picture means, or a teacher or a parent or a guardian can actually use the pictures to communicate back. So it's opening up this new way of communication that maybe these non-verbal children didn't have before. So I'll quickly show you this because this is kind of cool. I'm going to hop in. Now I've logged in here already. And you can see here it says bonjour to me, as I said, and you have an account. So again, a teacher or parent or the young person involved has an account. And then there's tons of resources already here in terms of pictures. So if we go into the photo album here, you can see there's all these different types of pictures that the young person can use to communicate, or again, that the adult who's working with the young person can use to communicate to them. And Niamh, like as a teacher, you could see the benefit of this, couldn't you? If a student was non-verbal, a lovely way to be able to actually communicate with them.
Definitely, Amanda. I'm a primary school teacher, and I think that the Helpico app is brilliant in terms of it's so user-friendly, so colourful, and obviously it's so important. I think the basic expectation as a teacher is that you're able to communicate with your students, and obviously not all students can communicate orally, so you have to consider those non-verbal students in your classroom and how you can incorporate them into your lessons as easily as possible. So I think that would be amazing in the classroom.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm the same, obviously secondary school teacher, and I can see such benefits of this just to help. Again, it's AI for good, guys. This is how do we help? And you can see this would be a huge help. Okay. Okay, so there's our examples and our understanding. So we've 3 down, right? We've 3 I for good pillars down that we've gone through, and 1 to go. Okay, so let's have a look at the last one here, which is AI for humanitarian action, the final pillar that we're going to give you an overview of. So humanitarian action obviously is looking at how we can use technology to assist, it could be governments or organizations with humanitarian problems. Now, this could be something such as people seeking asylum. This could be about people who are displaced. It could be about disaster management. There's a lot of areas around this. So again, we have a video to demonstrate what these areas could be. So we're going to watch that now in a second. But again, this is a really interesting one and something to again brainstorm about and think about, well, is there something I could do in this area too? So let's have a look at the video, and then I'll again touch on some of the examples that were explained. And while you're watching the video, just take in how broad this is, because again, like I said, it could be to help people who are seeking asylum to a natural disaster. So it's very broad. So we watch the video and we'll talk about that afterwards.
Human rights situation often deteriorate very quickly, and the faster we can get the information and we can react to the situation, it can be a real game changer.
New technologies are advancing so rapidly, and technology companies can advise us on how best to use those technologies to protect and promote human rights.
Our objective is automatic damage mapping, because after the disaster, the government needs the damage map to carry out the effective rescue. If we can save the time to grasp the ground damage information, we are able to save a lot of life and facilities.
In a new partnership with the World Bank, United Nations, and tech industry partners, we'll be better able to predict when and where famine will occur.
Operation Smile's vision really sinks in with what I feel is a fundamental human right.
What the volunteers do for the children may seem like a small thing, but they're able to change the lives of the families forever.
We're creating a chatbot-based experience for refugees coming out of the Syria conflict. The purpose is to have displaced youth find a way to discover and access learning materials. You can engage directly with the course content.
It's just the beginning of the impact that we hope to have with the tools at our disposal.
Okay, so quite a lot again of different areas that you might find that you're really passionate about and that you would like to help out with there. And a couple of the ones that were mentioned there, one of the first one that was mentioned was the Famine Action Mechanism, which is a partnership between the World Bank and lots of organizations. Microsoft is one of them. And it's to prevent famines in the future. So again, when we think about that predictive side of AI, where we can actually, trends could be recognized from history, from historical data sets that would help us actually be proactive and prevent something happening in the future. So that's a really interesting project that's been worked on, that's been mentioned there. Another one was looking at helping children. So you saw the needs of children and protecting children was one of the areas too. So whether that's with chatbots or using other AI technologies, that could be really useful. And then the other one was the Asylum Seeker Advocacy Project. So using speech to text and using the APIs, the cognitive services we already have to communicate and assist with these asylum seekers. And you've seen again, like the likes of Translator would be brilliant there, because they might not have the language that you're communicating in, but Translator will allow that to be translated into the language they understand. So really useful. But one I really like that was highlighted in the video was Operation Smile. And you can see a gorgeous picture there on the slides. And with Operation Smile, what they're able to do is use Microsoft and use the technology and the AI to help them with their services, not only in terms of being really, really effective, but being able to look at images and use algorithms to help them model and improve their services all the time. And if they're being really effective with costs and with times, and if they're being more accurate, obviously this all has a really positive knock-on effect to the people they're trying to help, which happen to be a lot of children. So that's amazing stuff. And again, that's all using the power of AI in the background. So really, really cool. Okay. So now that's the overview of the 4 pillars done. And I know that was probably a lot, but we're hoping now you have a good idea of the types of projects that have been included already in those pillars. And again, your project might fit into those pillars in different ways. So we want you to now, if you haven't already, make sure that you're now ideating and you're coming up with your ideas. Remember, the ideas equal the innovation. Use our support manuals that we're putting up online to help you. And remember, you still have a good bit of time because the project isn't actually due until to be submitted. It needs to be submitted by June 12th. So a good bit of time to submit your project, both with the Irish side of the competition and then the global competition as well. So let your ideas equal the innovation. Come up with as many ideas as you possibly can. And what we'll do then next week is we're going to use our design thinking and our decision tree to help you narrow it down. And how can you actually get as many marks as possible? We're going to show you the grading scheme and get as many marks as possible to help you then before you've submitted your project. So I'm just going to go to Q&A. I think we're okay actually with Q&A. But again, just to highlight that you can go on to the website to get any extra information you need. And if you need to contact us as well, you can, you or parent guardian can contact them through our Twitter channel as well. Okay. All right, so that's it, I think, from myself and Niamh. Niamh, thank you for your help today.
No problem. Thanks, everyone. And I'm looking forward to seeing all these amazing projects.
Yeah, me too. So thanks, everyone. And we will catch up with you in our next episode, episode 5. Bye.
Bye.